Our days get a little complex sometimes. Often so many things make sense, yet so many do not. We are being intentional about giving prominence to the big stories in order to clarify and enlighten. Lead Story explains who, what, when, where, why, and how. Lead Story with George Davis, weekdays at 6:30 p.m. on CVM TV.
What's your story? What's your sign? You're dreamers. Don't care what other people say. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive. We come alive. We come alive. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive.
It's Monday, January 6, 2025. This is CVM News at noon, and I'm Ramon Gordon. The body of an unidentified woman was discovered along the Devon Penn Main Road in St. Mary on Sunday. Police say the woman, believed to be in her late 20s, showed signs of strangulation and multiple abrasions. She was approximately 6 months pregnant. Residents made the grim discovery and alerted authorities. The St. Mary police have launched an investigation into the parish's first murder of the year. And China is reporting a surge in the human metapneumovirus, a respiratory illness that causes cold and flu-like symptoms. The virus, which is most dangerous to young children and the elderly, has raised concerns about overwhelmed hospitals in some parts of that country. Concerns are mounting over what this could mean globally and locally, as cases have been reported beyond the Chinese borders. Join us at 7 for expert insights into the implications and preventative measures. Pedestrian casualties are climbing, with 3 fatalities recorded since the start of the year. Vice Chairman at the National Road Safety Council, Dr. Lucian Jones, is urging authorities to ramp up road safety measures to stem the trend and protect lives.
We need to put a stop to this very quickly. Let's it balloons out of control completely. We have requested 3 important meetings with government officials. One, to look at increasing the capacity of the National Road Safety Council to do its work. The second one, to look again at how we are dealing with the motorcycle problem, motorcyclists. And thirdly, to look at pedestrians. These 2 constitute the biggest problem we have on our roads, motorcyclists and pedestrians. There's a 4th meeting requested also to look at the whole matter of speeding and to see how we can improve the enforcement.
Opposition spokesperson on industry Anthony Hilton has taken aim at Minister Albin Hill, accusing him of failing to implement meaningful measures to bolster the sector. Speaking on CVM's Lead Story, Hilton criticized the absence of clear policies, stating there is little to show in terms of direction or progress.
I think there's a lack of vision. I was disturbed and remain disturbed that some of his first acts were to remove heads of key agencies, and there are quite a few. And I wondered, because it's not as if it was a change of administration. It was within his own administration. And my question was, well, what is there an ideological issue? Is there a philosophical question? I doubted it. And these persons, so far as I was observing, a few of whom served under me as minister, were performers. No, he came to the view somehow that they were not performing. But whomever he replaced them with, they were not performing either, because you can see from the numbers. So the question is, what is the vision? What is the approach? What is the policy strategy that informs the minister? What are the policies that the minister has put in place? And there has been none that I can recall of that is worthy to discuss on this program.
The Education Ministry has rolled out a new initiative, Transformation in Education for National Development Trend, aimed at monitoring and ensuring accountability in efforts to shape the nation's youth through education. The program is designed to track the progress of policies and initiatives implemented in schools as part of a broader strategy to enhance national development.
We have a volunteer opportunity for Jamaicans because the ministry alone is not going to fix all of this. We all of us
hands on deck
are going to have to do it. And so we have a website where anyone who wants to volunteer to help can go and volunteer to help in our schools. It doesn't have to be your alma mater. It can be a school near you or even far from you that you just want to help.
Wow.
And we're here to take that help because it's all of us going to make it better. Why? The TREND program is really the implementation of the Patterson report. And you know, in Jamaica, we tend to have these big reports and commissions, and then it's put on a shelf. This is one instance where I can say to Jamaica that it's not on a shelf. It is being rolled out. And so you actually have a website where you can see every single recommendation that was made by the Patterson Commission, and you can see what percentage we're at in terms of implementing it, which is very, very important, and accountability is big, because at this stage of our development, we need to be able to show that we're making progress every single year. And that's what TREND is about. TREND is tied back to that Patterson report and fixing the things that need fixing in our education system.
Calls are mounting for increased funding to address worsening road conditions in St. Mary as expanding potholes and clogged drains raise public health concerns. The newly elected councillor notes that some of the affected roadways have not been repaired in years. Details in this report.
Residents of Needham Pen and St. Thomas are lamenting the poor state of their roads is not even fit for farming purposes, noting they've worsened without attention for years.
Until that those part, me say me want the road to fix, and me will always say it. And left out somebody something them want me soon run up and I give this and I give that and I give this and I give that. And come fix the road. Come fix the road, man.
She contends despite the development around the area and repairs elsewhere, they've been somehow forgotten.
When they come, they fix half a Needham Pen Road, fix Spring Garden Road, and run a pier, run a barking lodge in a bush. Me now say they enough to fix the road around the side. Yes, they can fix it, but this is a living community where people travel back and forth, brother. And animal come here, chicken and everything come here, goat come here, cow drive pan tractor truck come here, pig come here, come out of the community. Well, last time me there, Nanny said when pig inside, he pig dead. And me can't bet pan the line, yeah, pig me dead, yes. But at the heap of dirt them where I go get from half of the road would contribute to the killing of the pig. That makes sense?
Residents say the last time their roads were fixed was years ago and under the former Member of Parliament, Dr. Fenton Ferguson.
I said it. It was in 2009. I recall vividly. I also recall the contractor who did this work, and it was done through the National Works Agency under the leadership of Fenton Ferguson and myself as councillor.
But until the fix arrives,
I go and bounce it till better come, man, because I hope for the best, you know. Because I'm a taxpayer in our country, so I hope for the best. And the best must come.
All right, sir.
You understand me? Must come.
the councillor is imploring patience as she assesses the state of the division and advocates for the necessary resources in securing the change demanded. Nika Lewis, CVM News.
And thanks, Nika, for that report out of St. Thomas. And with that, we take a quick break right here on CVM News at noon. Don't go too far.
Take action to secure your property ownership. Get a registered certificate of title and become the legal owner of your property. To register your property and obtain a certificate of title, you will need to provide a tax registration number (TRN), a valid government-issued identification, a survey diagram, documentation to prove ownership, up-to-date property tax certificate, the names, addresses, and occupations of 2 neighbors over the age of 50 who are not family members and can give a declaration on your behalf, proof that you have been in open, undisturbed, and undisputed possession of the property for 12 years or more. For further information on registering your property and obtaining a certificate of title, contact the National Land Agency at 876-750-5263 or 876-946-5263. Email asknla@nla.gov.jm or message us at WhatsApp at 876-418-5089. The National Land Agency. One agency, one goal to serve you better.
Discover and develop spiritual gift for evangelism. Study to preach and pray with power and boldness at Deeper Life Bible School. No age limits, no CXC required. Attend classes once per week. Graduation at the end of your studies. 8 locations across the island. Register now for the new semester.
Attending Deeper Life School of Evangelism was one of the best things that happened in my life. Together you and I.
Welcome back. It's time for our discussion segment. As President-elect Donald Trump prepares to take office on January 20, 2025, his promise of executing the largest deportation in U.S. history has sparked some anxiety among immigrant communities. With thousands of Jamaicans living in the United States, concerns are growing about how these policies might impact their lives. Joining us now to explore these pressing issues and the way forward is Dr. Shauna Chin, Vice Chair and elected representative for the U.S. West and Midwest on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council. Dr. Chin, again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
When you heard President-elect Donald Trump utter those words publicly, the largest ever deportation effort in U.S. history, what was your immediate reaction to that news?
Well, there are 2 things that are at play here. So there's President Trump's policies and what he wants and his vision, but there's also Project 25, which is another what you'd call a conservative social vision document. And that's what a lot of people are working on, a lot of people are concerned about, because that project is quite conservative, to say the least.
Yeah. Give us some insight into Project 2025, because it did play a significant role in the elections just recently passed. So share with our viewers who may not be familiar some of its principles and why they're so concerning.
Well, so Project 2025 is, there are different companies, organizations that they have their wish list. And when you are aligned with political parties and members within those parties, high influential persons within those parties, sometimes your wish list becomes reality. And so the Heritage Foundation is one such organization that they have promoted largely their wish list, which is a 990-page document that talks about from things from immigration that you touched on, abortion rights, things such as abolishing the Department of Education. They are keen on fusing the Homeland Security into other different organizations, which is why you hear President Trump and other Republican Party members speak about the largest in history of immigration reform. And it largely has to do with the Homeland Security, infusing that with other agencies. But also key in that aspect is also getting rid of a lot of in these organizations, you have persons who are hired into these organizations, but then
as like a double agent of sorts, you'd say.
Well, no, more like, persons who are educated, persons who have a track history, they can apply for these particular jobs.
Important for clarity, right?
The Project 2025 is suggesting is to abolish that, and then now you have political appointees, which Jamaica is no stranger to political appointees in certain, organizations. So you can imagine why a lot of persons are saying, well, wait a minute, you want to get rid of persons who have worked for it and then appoint political appointees for your agenda. And so that's what the fear is.
Curious. Doc, back to the matter of immigration. What are you hearing from Jamaican families on the ground living in the U.S., and how could potential, future Trump policies affect the stability of these communities?
That's an excellent question, because since I've been elected to the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council 4 years ago, this has been a large issue, especially in my region in the US West and Midwest, because I'm closest to the Mexican border. So we have a lot of Jamaican families who have paid what they call coyotes, and they come across into Los Angeles or in the California area. And again, there are two things. When I speak, I'm always speaking from a multifaceted approach, right? And so there is the government's response. There's also, persons who are on the ground who are actually coming across the border. So you hear their response. And so, it's just hard trying to find that voice in the middle to be able to get to the real goal, which is making sure that we have safe Jamaicans, that we are, operating within our host country's rules, and that we are also making sure that our nationals are safe. That's the number one thing, right? So it's trying to find a balance between that. From the nationals' perspective, when they come across, a lot of them are scared, because the coming over across the border is a very vicious process. They are targeted because what happens is some locals within the Mexican border, they've identified that they're paying upwards of sometimes 5,000 to even 10,000 US dollars to cross the border.
Oh.
And so they then become a target for, crime and theft and people trying to kidnap them so that they can get ransom money. And they're like, wait, no. I don't have it like that. It's not that kind of party. I'm not that rich. But then the persons who are doing nefarious activities at the border, they don't care about that. They want to know, okay, listen, you found the money to come, you will find the money to give us. And so that's...
Well, Doc, I remember last year, there were many conversations happening within the diaspora, and there were some divisions, warring factions, and much debate over what the priority should be. But in a matter such as this, as delicate as immigration, how important would you say is it for the diaspora to unite in response to, these potential efforts to, deport us?
That's an excellent question. And the important thing is there are always going to be different opinions. You'll never change that. From the beginning of time, people are always going to differ on what's important, right? And that will make the same case with when the government has its own priorities, right? And again, sitting on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, which is out of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in Jamaica, the number one priority is always safety, making sure the nationals are safe, right? But again, there are multiple factors that we have to pay attention to, which it's not just immigration and deportation that is a priority, but we also have Jamaica has its own goals to grow and be a part of the, meeting our sustainable development goal targets. And so one of that is largely also climate change. And so you find on the ground, people in the diaspora are like, well, Jamaicans, we don't care about climate change, but we actually do, right? We have on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, 2 years in a row, we had representatives from the council who went and presented at COP29, which is largely talking about climate change and how Jamaica can influence that change and how it affects us in Jamaica as well, trying to figure out how we can work together to play our part. And so those 2 top priorities, climate change, immigration, of course, education, health, there's so many priorities, and it's hard to keep one as the main thing ongoing, and you just, have to keep on multitasking is a good word, right? Which is why on the council we have representatives from not just the traditional regions, but also in the sectors. So we have a sector member who is for climate change. We have a sector member who is for education. We have a sector member who talks about immigration and deportation plans. So, we're multitasking is really the thing. that I want to emphasize. Here in the diaspora, we're multitasking, trying to figure out, come January 20, when the regime changes, how can we just make sure that our nationals are safe?
Doug, as we wait for that January 20 date, how should we be mobilizing both the Jamaican government, stakeholders in the diaspora and locally? What should the conversation items now be?
Well, certainly we want to make sure that we position ourselves as far as what Jamaica's goal is. And Jamaica has its own Vision 2020, right? Vision 2025. And what does that look like for us? How can we get to that goal together? That's going to be the most important thing. Specifically for immigration, here in the US West and Midwest region, I largely have been working with the